So I know we're coming in. I think you guys are just coming in from a meeting or something. I saw some hustling and bustling. So let's just take a moment, have a breath, and have a chat with someone near you because it's been 2 weeks, and I'd like to just connect back to the ideas from the last session, the philosophy behind the all the stuff that we're going to talk about today and the next time. So the question that you can discuss: what's been on your mind regarding the ideas from last time?
Well, what stood out for me was I really liked the continuum, and that was on my mind. And I had a meeting with leadership and kind of going, we really need to get this back into the kindergarten program. What are our opportunities? And I came from
Are
a
you
place of,
talking about you were talking about a dedicated space, right? That you had, but you lost maybe?
yeah. So we used to have a dedicated space, and then it just keeps getting moved around, and now it's just been eliminated. So asking about opportunities to bring it back and the benefits of it. So
Oh, and what was the response?
Safety measures is not a good time. We need the teaching space. We don't know how long we're going to have the campus for. So basically a lot of excuses and sidestepping responsibility in my eyes. But
right.
I came from a place of responsibility. I came from a place of being honest and saying, well, this is what would be great for our program. I understand that we have other considerations to take into, but it's out there.
All right. Well,
we'll see.
Is there any other places you can, sometimes I go around the school and I kind of just like look for little nooks and crannies, or like, if I have a chance, I'll just kind of do a walk around the school and like see what kind of what kind of space I can commandeer, So
we used to do it outside the nurse's office, which was an undercover area. And so at the moment it's happening when the creative playground is available. We try and get it out there, but it's moving the equipment in and out because there isn't a designated space to put the equipment that we use. But maybe after safety measures, when this all passes over and we can move things around, perhaps we'll get a room or a space. We have a very different setup to Lakeside, and Mark's been, and Lucas has been here too. You know how old and watery it can be.
Well, good luck with that.
Thank you. We'll keep plugging away, and I'll keep chirping in the ear, as annoying as that is, but someone's going to do it, and someone's got to advocate for the program, especially over we're only 2 of us or 3 of us.
That is the thing. It's all about advocacy, right? Anybody else have anything that they want to share?
Anyone? Yeah, we were talking about utilizing our resources and that, like all the equipment we have and how we can be creative and use it in many different ways. And not only that, what we're going to talk about today is our space and how we can utilize that effectively. And anything else? And maybe even like buying, for our next year's equipment order, what we can maybe purchase to help out the program too. That's always every year we try to come up with a wish list, and we have to go through it and figure out what will be actually useful. So maybe if we had some ideas on that, it would be helpful too.
Mark, can I just jump in? Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to say, if we don't have a space, we have a lot of equipment here that I've bought, like cheese wedges for rolling, vaulting equipment, all the gymnastics stuff, because that's my background. And so we have you have a lot of hanging stuff, which we don't have available, but all of the vaults, you have springboards already, wedges, soft play, lots of all of those things. If we don't have a space for it, you guys might as well take it, because there's no point double buying. And if we don't exist in 2 years' time or 1 year's time, we're going to have to move it all over to you guys anyway.
Figuring out allocation.
Yeah,
Really good.
one thing I just wanted to mention, just to kind of dovetail on what Zach was saying with resources and space. So, Zach, I wanted to highlight what you had tried. I think it was last year at the beginning of the unit. Zach's room was empty, and then Zach started to involve the kids in discussions about what they might be pursuing in the unit, and then getting them to share their ideas about um, what could be used, what resources they can remember that might be used. So involving the students in the discussion of the setup, right, Zach?
Spoiler alert, Andy. That was gonna come later, bro.
Oh, damn.
Just kidding. No, not today, but the next one.
Okay.
Yeah, it was an interesting exercise. You know, you get a lot of crazy answers from 3-year-olds, but you know, you go mining for gold, and it really gives a chance for them to exercise their agency, and you know, you find out what's really important to them. You know, what resources they really want to. This was halfway through the year, so they had already explored some of the resources, and then they were asked, you know, actually it was done out of necessity because I have carpet in my room, and the cleaners were going to clean the carpets over the winter holiday. So I just took advantage of it. But we'll talk about that more later. Maybe the next time. It's not coming up in this one. But we were talking about space that you guys mentioned. So that's what we're going to turn our minds to this time, and thinking about space and the environment as a provocation in itself, and how do we plan for that. And anytime you can work a Pablo Picasso quote into a PE presentation, you've got to do it. So I've gone ahead and done it. And it's a quote about planning. Our goals can only be reached through a vehicle of a plan in which we must fervently believe and upon which we must vigorously act. There is no other route to success. And this quote really resonated with me because this is really somewhat of my mantra, especially when planning. I'm really in depth in my planning, especially for the environment. And I think if you really plan for the environment, plan your design, think about how you can use your resources in innovative ways and creative ways, then you know, a lot of things will take care of themselves. Engagement will take care of itself. You know, authentic application of skills will take care of itself. Skill building will take care of itself in a way. So that's what we're going to talk about today. The environment. Environmental design should be purposefully and creatively planned with the aim of inviting students to apply skills independently and confidently. So I saw some stuff, some videos during the past 2 weeks where, you know, younger students and some of the older students, you know, they're taking advantage of the environment at your school, and they're not sitting around in line. They're not waiting. They're taking initiative. They're exercising their own agency. They have a hand in the curriculum, or the, you know, what and how they learn. So it was really good stuff, and I think it was partly because you guys really put a lot of thought into your environmental design, and maybe I can give you some further ideas that you can take away today. So I want to share with you a layout to consider, and this is my layout, or one of my layouts, I should say. We'll pretend this is my room. This is somewhat like my room. Just a basic rectangular room. As I said, it has carpet, like that industrial type carpet, so you can still bounce balls on it and stuff. And here's how we use the space. So for example, or first, the students, when they come, this is outside the room. There's a long bench here, and that's where the students come to wait in case, you know, they've come early and the other class hasn't finished, or they've come late and I'm waiting for them. But it's just a place for them to park, and I will come out to greet them, starting with a routine of, you know, getting ready to listen. 3, 2, 1. Whoosh. Then I will speak to them, you know, give them any instructions that I need for them to hear upon entering, because usually we have an instant activity or something that we like to call a magic door, something that gets them going right away without any sitting time besides the waiting bench, but that's before their class period has started. So I want to just draw your attention to two areas and how the room is set up. So this is the guided area over here. I'm gonna use the pointer. I never use the pointer. Guided area. So this would be an empty area, usually, unless there's something set up for the instant activity or the magic door activity. And this is for, this is where we'll do our guided discovery, I call it, or guided lesson, So there would be a bit of explicit teaching going on here, and then them practicing, but they have free space to move. So this is mostly empty area here. I do use a smart board to display stories and, whatever other content I need. And then just like a small shelf here, and always a speaker because I'm using a lot of music and I like to play it really loud. And then the second area over here, we would call the discovery area. And you'll notice here, this is representing like just a large gymnastics mat that's on its side, like a wall. And there would be a stop sign here too. So they know, and this takes a little bit of practice and routine building because they don't reach all the way across the mats. So I put a stop sign here, and they know during our guided discovery time or guided lesson time on this side, they don't go over onto this side. So it's just a way of dividing the space because, well, first of all, students need to develop spatial awareness. And if they have too much space, they can't really do that, This way, we have a smaller space where they're actually forced to negotiate with other students and stuff around them. And we do a lot. Yeah.
I just want to mention one thing. So for Alana, the pictures you sent today of the space, the room, the motor room, or whatever you called it, is exactly the size of the space that Zach is showing right now. So Alana, just in your head as you're thinking about your kids, it's the exact space that Zach is sharing right now, Zach. So I just wanted to put that in.
Sure. That's cool. And then, so on the discovery area, this is where we'll have like a lot of equipment set up. And we're going to talk about that and see examples of that in a moment. But this is where they could go in order, and I might introduce each of these provocations one at a time. So there's there's expectations about safety and, just positive, constructive ways of playing on each one. And then we might build them up until it's all, there's a cycle going just for safety's sake. So they're kind of going in the same direction. And then once they've got that, actually, we kind of relax the going in one direction or going in order rule, and they can choose, but they still are going in like similar directions. So it's not chaotic. But they still have independence. And then this area here will change often, and we're going to see some examples of that too. So this is just a layout for you to consider when you're designing your space. Thinking about some space where there's empty space and a place for them to move in general space, basically, and then a discovery area where this is where they can apply those skills. Okay, so we're going to go on a gallery walk now. Oh, yeah. And then, so generally it will be the first half will be on this side, or maybe first third. Then the borders will be moved away and they move into this area. And then you can still use this space for, a side game if you wanted to. Okay, so that's the layout. And now we're going to go on a gallery walk. So I just want to point out some designs that I've used and a little explanation just to get you thinking about what's possible in these spaces. Okay. So this would be the guided area. We're talking about the guided area where there's lots of space to move. Here, the kids are, I think we're talking about either fast or slow or strong or light, movement concepts. And I'm using a drum and I'm bashing the drum, maybe fast, maybe slow, and they're supposed to move along with the drum. And as you can see, they've got space, but they don't have so much space. So they do need to, use eyes, use their intuition, and develop their spatial awareness here. Just another way to creatively move here. We'll just get silly. This is when we're doing stories and stuff. I'm not sure exactly how we were moving right here, but you can tell they are enjoying it. And as you can see, they're a little bit bunched up. And these are 3 and 4-year-olds, so they're still working on that spatial awareness development. This is a picture of a meeting place inside of the guided area. So sometimes if we need to sit down, we'll use tape on the floor, and it'll be in different designs according to the story. So here, this is actually called a soup pot. I don't know if you can see it, but
magic soup pot.
It's a magic soup pot, yes. So these little red spots would be where they park themselves. And inside here are title pieces to some of the stories that we have explored. Whoops. And, this is kind of a technique called traces. And once we explored a story, I would tape it down to the floor inside the soup pot, like we were melding all the stories together. And they could think back about what they learned. We used it in many different ways for like choosing what we were going to do that way, voting with our feet. And it's a technique of documentation to use the space as a reminder, as a resource, as a remembrance of things past. And just more exploring. This would be like when they first came in, I put on some music, give them a scarf, moving freely. Can you toss your scarf? Can you catch your scarf? What can you do with your scarf? Explore the scarf. Can you toss it up? And then, I'll give them some, I'm sorry, keep switching forward. During the time, I'll just, I'll have a scarf too. And I'll say, hey guys, I wonder if you can toss it and clap one time before you catch it. I wonder if you can toss it and spin one time before you catch it. How many times can you spin? How many times can you clap? Can you catch it on your head? Can you catch it on your elbow? Can you catch it on your knee? Can you catch it on your foot? What other body parts can you catch it on?
Zach, I just want to add to that because I've seen an evolution in Zach's teaching with this approach over the years. And Zach, about 3 years ago, Zach used the same setup 3-4 years ago, but Zach really led the activity in the guided area. And then what we noticed was that the kids would then bunch up and follow Zach and do exactly what Zach did. So the kids were constantly glued to him. So over time, he used his instruction at the beginning of the guided time to show them what's possible, and then removed himself and just let them explore and play, and then gave individual kind of feedback rather than being the leader during that time. Right, Zach?
Definitely. And it's not about like, I think the correct phrase or the key phrase is I wonder. I wonder if, I wonder what's possible. What can you do? So you're not telling them do this. You're actually querying, you're nudging them instead of just taking them by the hand and leading them, right? And it's the same thing on this picture. They've got fly swatters, they've got balloons. We're talking about, inquiring into striking, what's the best way to strike? And exploration again, just free exploration. Kids this age, and I would argue up to age 9, we need to explore with our materials before we can actually, so we know what's possible, right? What works, what doesn't work, and we figured it out ourselves, right? And then just I think this is one time where we actually even further enclose the space. As you can see the mats around, that was like a circle. So we're working on how do you move when your space gets smaller and smaller. And that's another spatial awareness technique. So taking away space, how can you move? How can you stay safe? and lots of learning in there. And you can see.
But then, Zach, you let them say bust out of jail, and they all run and they just slam their bodies into the mats and knock them down. They love that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Jailbreak.
Jailbreak. That's right. Okay, let's see what else. So this here is just a picture of like some of the markings I might use on the floor. You can see back here, and this is just regular, it's duct tape, colored duct tape. So I might use different symbols as meeting spaces. This is 2 years ago I tried this. We had a meeting space called a house. We had a meeting space called the grasslands, and not pictured here was the sea or the lake. I never really settled on what it was called. It was a blue body of water. And also, so these can be meeting spaces, but then and then the red is like little shapes for them to stay inside self space, which is another spatial awareness concept we need to really deal with. And kids need to think about non-locomotor movements inside a space. You'll be surprised how difficult it is for some kids to stay in self space, you know?
So Zach, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but again, as I'm watching this, I'm thinking about how I'm applying this to my grade 4 and 5 classes, because the self space, you know, if they're doing any kind of fundamental skill development, throwing and catching, whatever it is, it becomes really difficult to control the ball or whatever they're using inside of a confined space. So it's actually really good for their gross motor development. So the kind of self-space idea is not just for the young kids, it can actually be for the older kids too. So go ahead.
Yeah, and once we lay these foundations in early childhood, then that's why I said, you know, our early childhood guys were the most important teachers in the school. Because then these lazy elementary teachers, they just get these kids and they're like, okay, go find self space, and they already know how to do it. Just kidding. But yeah, it's the foundation, you know. Go find somewhere where you can't touch anyone and nobody can touch you, right? Something like that. And you can see this little guy is practicing with a ribbon in self space. And also in this, I just wanted to mention the tape, and I saw you guys using tape, which is, I think tape is one of the biggest things I use. Tape and white tack are, you know, everybody has go-to materials, you know, tape and white tack are mine. So if you need to, these can just be ignored, right? And you still have your open space, right? And then here's just another picture of, this was last year. We decided to go, our first story was about space. So our meeting space was a planet with rings, and their self space was stars. And you can see this guy enjoying ribbon play. And then another thing that I wanted to introduce, maybe you already know about it, is the magic door. So magic door is basically an instant activity, but it's purposeful and it excites engagement, right? So you call it the magic door. Let's go through our magic door. We're going to go in the door a special way today. You know, you can do anything with a magic door. Hanging streamers at the top, so they have to go through like they're going through a jungle, the vines in a jungle, or, you know, maybe a giant's dental floss, or, you know, big bowl of pasta spilled down, you know, I don't know. Or this one, we're weaving, where we're crawling in and out of little tight spaces here, these hoops. And I don't exactly remember what the story was, but this is purposeful too, because crawling is an excellent midlines activity. It can't actually, if you watch a kid crawl and they're not doing opposing crawling, so where their left hand moves while their right foot moves forward, you know, opposite hand and opposite leg, they could have some midline development difficulties. So this could be a way where you could have a TA or yourself, you know, reading the moves as we talked about last time and taking notes. And of course, don't forget, it's important that you yourself get in on this action too, right? So sometimes we call the teacher maybe a playmate plus, you know, like that knowledgeable playmate. They're still playing, but they're also like, instead of being the teacher, they're just being a very skilled playmate. And then this thing actually was what we were crawling into, which is like just a tunnel. No, not a tunnel, a tent built with cones, pool noodles, the connector things, and just a big parachute laid over top. And that's, again, a proprioception building, getting into tight spaces, spatial awareness, awareness of your position in space. So
I
that's
think Atlanta, mute.
Sorry, I had a question about crawling because I've been doing some crawling with kids, but I noticed some of the kids, even though I model it, they are on their feet and hands instead of their knees and hands. And I'm wondering, do you correct that, or what do you do with that? No, it's in the gross motor room where it's carpeted. So I'm just wondering, what does that mean? And then do you correct it, or is that? Because I've been leaving it, I've just been observing at the moment, but I'm wondering what you do with it.
Well, I would say, am I muted? No, okay.
Nope.
I would say there's a lot of different kinds of crawling, right? They're all good for something. So on your knees crawling, again, that's and you can marry different animals to it. On your knees crawling could be sort of maybe a dog or a cat. You can do a bear crawl where they're on their feet and hands. Or actually we call that the monkey crawl. The bear crawl is on feet and hands, but you only move the right side at one time, then the left side at one time. There's a caterpillar crawl where you only move your feet, then you move your hands. So many different kinds of crawling, and they're all, we talked about the midlines a little bit. Your body's divided by these imaginary lines, left and right, front and back, and top and bottom. So they're all important, and it's all great for brain development. It actually develops the corpus callosum, which is the seam of your brain, so to speak, and it's what helps the two sides of your brain, or facilitates the two sides of your brain to communicate. So the more the corpus callosum is developed, the easier the neuro impulses can travel. Like the more efficiently they can travel inside the brain from both sides. So there's a lot of things that go into crawling, right?
So Alana, so rather than look at so I think it's about the exploration. So you just introduce kind of the different ways, and then they will gravitate towards a way that best resonates with them and their bodies, I think, right? So rather than making them sequentially go through a series of movements, Zach, is that accurate?
Well, again, it's that I wonder question, right? So it's not, you're crawling wrong, don't do it, do it this way. It's, I wonder if you can try this, and a demonstration, a model, I wonder if you can crawl in a different way. What else can you do? It's not, I wouldn't say, don't do it that way, do it this way. I would say, I wonder. So I wonder is a very powerful statement, or very powerful question, right?
I guess I'm wondering, so if I phrase it that way, can you crawl like a dog, for instance, and you're crawling on your knees, and they can't? Do you just observe it, or do you try to correct it?
Yeah, I would make a note of it. If the crawling as a developmental stage is a really important developmental stage. If you get a kid that sometimes kids skip crawling, babies or toddlers skip crawling, and that can actually be detrimental, because the opposable motion is, like, as I said, it's coordination developing. So if they skip that stage, it could possibly mean that they have not, what's the word I'm looking for? I always forget this word. The primitive reflexes have not gone to the background and been replaced by the postural reflexes. So they may need some direct intervention. That's true. If you notice that, and again, that's called reading the moves. So I would just make notes of it, and possibly maybe there's a small group that needs it, and while the other kids are in the discovery area applying their skills authentically, you can pull out a small group and mess around with them.
Thanks very much.
Okay, not mess around with them.
Alana, also, you might have access to, when they sign up, their parents have to fill out a form, and they'll say, like, what age did your child start walking? What age did your child start crawling? And if they say, like, they skipped this, then that's a conversation with the parents as well, and just be like, hey, like, I've noticed this. When did they start crawling? And asking those developmental questions before they came to school?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, we're gonna move to the chat in a moment, and I want to get as much information as possible on the kids. I would even, if it's okay, if you have to know the parents, I guess. But I would also, I would even get information on the pregnancy if I could. Did anything weird happen during the pregnancy? Was everything normal? It's very valuable information, but it could be sometimes a bit sensitive. But any information.
That's all that should be available to us. So you should be able to access all of that information. How was the pregnancy? Even like, was it cesarean? Were there any complications? Because
Yes.
developmentally, that's massive. And also, it has all that information. I believe it's definitely with the homeroom teachers, but ISAMs might be the way to go. So we do have that information because it's on the intake form.
Okay, so you might be able to access some of that. I just quickly skipped past this. This is another kind of magic door activity. This would be in the guided area, but it's more sequential. So they would enter in through here, and these are the provocations that they would roll through. This is like hopscotching, but with 2 feet in, out, in, out, in, out, in, and you use that language. This would be like forward rolls, backwards rolls, sideways rolls. This is heel toe walking. And then these are this is an idea I had for portals. So when they go through the portal, they change somehow. If they were going forward, maybe they go backwards. And then if they were going backwards, maybe they go forwards, maybe they go sideways, whatever you set out for them. And then this one was caterpillar walking, like they were eating through an apple from the Very Hungry Caterpillar. This might be, this one could be a forward roll here. This could be a backwards roll here. And generally my AT would be here and I would be here, because this might be the skill that we were actually looking for, but we want just one-on-one, but everybody working at the same time. And then this was a grass area where they hold their body in an egg shape and rock, which is a really good balance and power activity. And then the portal, they change again. And they might go through this like 3 times over 5 minutes. And then we hit the meeting space. And this was called the garden path, because in this story, we were superhero caterpillars. So and this is the garden here. And then they hit the meeting space. We quickly introduce the concept. Here's the smart board here, and then we're moving on again. So the sitting time is very minimal. So now we're moving a bit slowly. I want to move you on to a noticing and a discussion amongst yourselves. And Sarah, if you want to chat with me, that's totally great. What did you notice during our guided area gallery walk? And what might you take back to your learning spaces? Let's do a quick 2-minute conversation and then have 1 or 2 sharebacks, okay? Ready, go. So, I'm here if you have any thoughts, Sarah.
I was just thinking about with my grade 1s and 2s, I love because we have our meeting space, but having a story around that meeting space. So whether it's the space story or in the garden, I really like that idea of having it connected rather than disconnected there. And the portals, I wrote down that portals change how you are moving. So once we've done that, change. I mean, the unit we're doing currently, not so much, but in future units.
Yeah, so that actually was a I don't know if you guys have this. It's a Gopher thing. I think the hollow cylinders that are open at both ends, and then they sit on 2 humps. I don't know if you have it. It's just like a small kind of tunnel type thing, but any kind of tunnel you could do. You could use a cardboard box even,
Yeah. I could also use, so we have this thing where they sit on it and they can rotate themselves around. So I can say, like, you spin around 3 times and then you change direction, or like you're going forwards or backwards. Yeah. So those are the things that popped up into my head. I was like, that's kind of cool. So the meeting space, making a story around that, bringing that into the story. And the portals being like, oh, we're going to go through here, and that's when you change and you're showing me or should explore a different locomotion skill or forwards, backwards direction, heavy, light, fast, slow.
Yeah, and then that way they're if it could be their choice, or it can be something that you set out for them. You know, it's you could put the choice in their hands.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like if it's
Yeah.
like different, choose a different energy or choose a different level
Yeah.
as well. It's like you've been working up high,
Mhm.
now you're going to try and do something down low.
Low, go medium. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Well,
All right, guys. Anyone else have any? Thank you, Sarah. Anyone else have any thoughts to share? Ooh. Let's just do a quick one too, because we're running. We want to save some time for you guys to have a little activity.
Red.
So we have two gross motor skills with like a little corridor that interconnects them. We said that would be quite nice to start the lesson in one room and then have some like things hanging down like seaweed or and then going through into the provocation into their different spaces.
Cool. Sounds great. I'm gonna move you guys on because we've got some more stuff to get through. We're going into the discovery area here. So this is another gallery walk, and this is where we've got lots of stuff set up. So this actually, this is a kid. This guy made this himself using some of the materials that we had out, and I think it's really important for kids to have a hand in the environmental design. Maybe it's not what you thought at the beginning, and maybe it's not how you want to keep it, but it's really important to give them that opportunity. And then just using like different things in innovative ways, like this would normally this would be like thought about as a climbing ladder, not ladder. But then we add in the racket with a beanbag and stepping. So that is a coordination activity. Coordination is being able to do many things at one time, controlling many body parts at one time. So this is really tough for 3-year-olds, but you can see this guy's, he's working on it. This was, we're doing some climbing, and this would be the target tree. So we'd have a teacher here. My AT would be, making sure they're climbing safely. But they were designing their own targets on paper, and then they were climbing up the ladder to hang them on the tree. And later on, they were using rackets or balls or their hands to, try to hit the targets. And you can see that this was the result of it. And these are, I don't know if you guys have these foxtails or comet tails hanging down. That's a really good striking activity. If you don't have that, just a ball inside a pair of pantyhose is what I generally do. I even had that in my house during distance learning for my kid to mess around with. Just the little corners of the area where you can sneak in like a game. This is I think they call this like an Istanbul rally. It's a precursor to like tennis. So they're understanding the parts of a court, the net, the dividing line, the boundaries, and they're working on stopping the ball and hitting it back to the other side. But this is tucked into like a larger area. So like these two kids could be working on this. You can have somebody either taking videos as I was, or what's that called? The burst photo to make a GIF. And then the kids are all around are actually doing other stuff. And then this thing here, this picture here, I just put in for, there's a lot of materials outside of the Gopher catalog that we can use. I like that CrossFit aspect, like finding what we can use. I've used tires, I've used pantyhose, I've used what else? Cardboard boxes. I've used like boards for catapults and stuff, or balance beams, and just using other material in innovative ways is really important to me, and I think it really mixes things up and makes it interesting for the kids. So moving on, this is so now we're going to go into kind of a case study, and this is the setup from the storytelling unit I'm going to highlight during the next time. And these are the 5 provocations that were in the discovery area. First, you had the scales. So these humps with the, a soft block on top. They're crawling over them. They're balancing on them. It was an open-ended activity, but they were using it mostly as a balance activity, right? This is like different pathways that we always talk about: straight, zigzag, curved. So they were encouraged to move from one end to the other, choose a pathway, and move in different ways along different pathways. This is a mountain. This was the first thing. So they go up the mountain and down the mountain in many different ways. This is what we called the caterpillar bridge. So these hoops here, they can lift them up, and while they're on, like, crawling or sliding on the bridge, they have to get through the hoop. So while they're holding it, they've got to move through it, wriggle their body through it. So it's kind of a coordination activity. It's certainly a proprioception activity for spatial awareness. And then these were called the cable cars. You can see this rope. Okay. Oh, I forgot about ropes. I use ropes a lot too. Was tied to the end of this and to like another hanging bar over here. And they've got scooter boards. They're pulling themselves. They can go on their belly. They can go on their bottom. They can go on their back. Certainly a power activity, working the core muscles and the arms. So this is what...
Fran, it's actually, I think Fran has a quick question.
Sure.
And just a quick question about the scales.
Yes.
So the kid went over the scales, but then, like, do they need to reset it again for the next kid coming along? Like, how does that work?
We might have a teacher there also, or a TA there, to just kind of, because, if they're falling off, we have pads there and the wall was there too. So we just wanted to make sure it was safe. But, I generally left it alone, and the next kid that came along would just kind of, fit it to their needs. So you could do it that way, but where the kid you could make an agreement where, remember, when you knock the block off, then you replace it, right? We used to do that because there was another activity we had where they were rolling down ramps, and they rolled into like a wall of boxes that were stacked up. So after they did that, they needed to build the wall back up. That was their agreement. And it takes a lot of time to, and you probably have to be there the first few sessions to make sure and to, get that routine for them. But if that's what you want them to do, make it an agreement, right?
Well, you're teaching them responsibility as well.
Yeah, totally. Super APO. Yeah. So where was I? Okay. And then, so what I do for the kids also is I create the maps for them. As I said, we go in order, but after they've learned this order, it gradually falls away. But then this is kind of like this is the children's language, right? Symbols, stories, characters. Obviously their language right now is not words. Actually, if you wanted to, for reading, right? If you wanted to also make a text-rich environment, you could label them with the words, which I probably should do that, actually. Now that I think about it, that's something to do moving forward, because then they can associate the word with the picture. That's, at that age, we're all literacy teachers, we're all math teachers, we're all science teachers. So if the more you can add that stuff in, I think it's great. I just didn't think of it at that time. So this is like what I would show them to demonstrate, and then we called it the Traveler's Path. It was based on the story Stone Soup. They're actually, in the story, they're actually soldiers, but I didn't want to say soldiers, so I called them travelers. Let's see where we're at. Okay, so these are the illuminated layouts. This is what it would look like in that unit, right? So this is what the layout looked like. We've still got the guided area where there was, nothing basically. This was a soup pot. I think this is the best, the best cool looking soup pot I could find. This was our meeting area. And in this one, we weren't really working on spatial awareness as, our main focus. So there weren't any little things around, but this is how they went through it. They went up the mountain, down the mountain. They went over to scales. They went through the pathways. They went across the caterpillar bridge and down the cable car. And that directional language I would use with them a lot too. And then this is a very open-ended like thing on the floor, a jumble of shapes. This could be like following lines, heel toe walking. You could add rhythm sticks in, so they're moving along to a beat while trying to follow the pathways. You could be talking about colors here. You could be talking about shapes. You could be talking about different, as Sarah was talking about before, different kinds of energy, strong, light. And if you add in another thing, it's a coordination activity, right? Because they're doing things at the same time. And if you add in rhythm, then it's also a temporal awareness activity. So lots of things and then if it's out in your area and you're not doing a guided lesson, it'll be funny to see what the kids come up with on this when you just leave them to their own devices too. So that's another, that is one layout illuminated. And then I have another one for you. This is from the first unit. Here is the map, and this was a space unit. So they crossed a ladder, they went over a wall, they jumped on a trampoline, like bouncing on the moon. They climbed in the rocket ship, which was like a climbing net with the cardboard rocket ship in front. That was the sensory area. I think I showed pictures of that last time. They were doing some hanging, jumping and hanging. They were doing some balance activities. This is a skateboarding alien from our story. So here's that layout illuminated. I think in this activity, they would go over the ladder, they would go over the wall, they would bounce a few times and go to the spaceship. They would go over the spaceship, down the spaceship. We had an AT working. This is where I had the too high hanging bar. So I used that, what are those called? Resistance bands to kind of, strengthen hands. And this would also be a balance activity because it's stimulating the inner ear there. And also rocking is a balance activity too. And then you see some social interaction here, right? My cute little students that I never see anymore. And then, so this time, this was the first unit of the year. Here was our meeting spot. It was the space unit. So the meeting spot was the planet. The stars were their self-space. So they can meet here. You can say, go to your star. And of course, these guys, this could fall away. And you can do all kinds of stuff here during the discovery time. So where are we? Oh, design deliberation. So these are the final questions I want to leave you with. This is what I think about when I'm designing my space. Is the space inclusive? Is the design creative? And is it provocative? Is it going to be interesting for the kids, right? So inclusivity, we've got to think about physical and emotional safety. And I am wrapping up, Andy. This is the last thing. Maybe I don't need to read this to you. Maybe you guys can just read this to yourselves. And in 1 minute, we'll move on to the activity. This is your time right now, guys. This is where you kind of organize your thoughts, make sense of the information, and find your takeaways from the information. What's one thing you can do differently in the design of your environment next week and beyond? So how is this going to affect your teaching? And this, the reason we have the WhatsApp here is maybe you can, instead of sharing in this space, you can have a think about it right now. You can have a think about it over the weekend. You can have a think about it over the next week and share your takeaways on WhatsApp. And I don't know if you want to say
exactly. Yeah. Just to add to that. So we're hoping that you can just, especially Lakeside being in a new space, how you might implement a new strategy or modify something you're doing based on what resonated with you from Zach's presentation. So what we're hoping is that over the next week and a half, no pressure, but if you implemented an idea related to the design of your environment, take a photo of it, or a video of how the kids are interacting with that space, and a quick 1 minute audio. And the purpose of that is to share what you're doing, but then bounce ideas off of one another. So you're actually giving each other a lot of ideas. So we want to honor your time. We said we would finish by 3:50. So we'll end with that. But Zach,
right on time. Yeah.
Hey, and what I have to say is, like, I've seen Zach do this stuff for 4 years, and when I see him present and the ideas and then actually being in his class, seeing the kids engage, every time I'm like, it's so amazing. It really is. It's amazing, Zach, what you're doing with the kids. And it's just thinking your way through multiple ideas. So that's it for today. Mark, Zach and I are going to stay on the line. Okay. So you guys can just go, and thanks, Zach.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for your time. Have a good weekend.
Thanks,
That was
team.
really awesome.
Head up to the Hawkeye Market.
Thank you. Another amazing workshop, boys. Thank you, and have a good weekend.